What's happening? Welcome in another edition of Monday Live. Back at our regularly scheduled time this week. A lot to talk about tonight. Lots happened in the past week. Heading to Charlotte tomorrow for the ACC kickoff. 3 days of nothing but football talk coming up. Jump in, chime in. Anything you want to talk about, we'll go there before we get started. Remind everybody, as usual, please subscribe to the channel, like the videos. That's how we keep doing these things. Also want to remind everybody our next big live show, August 23rd, 6 p.m. This one's going to be live from Alumni Hall. As always, we're going to be giving away free swag. This time we got some free T-shirts to hand out for anybody that's in attendance. So come hang out with us August 23rd, our big season preview show. We'll talk about all kinds of things, previewing the season, state of the ACC, whatever else we can think of. Our first two shows, man, they've been pretty successful. We would like to continue that momentum with our third. Once again, August 23rd, Alumni Hall, Wednesday. It's on a Wednesday, 6 p.m. Yeah, a lot of things have happened over the past week since the last time we met, guys. The most recent being Corian Gibson announcing a commitment to Clemson. Brady's already gotten in here, said it was not as close. He was always going to be a tire. Yeah, touch base back and forth with Corian some today. I actually asked him that. I specifically asked him, was it that close between Clemson and Texas? And he said he knew in his heart, where he wanted to be. And we've touched on it before. I've been told he was close to pulling the trigger back at the spring game. I think this was just more about seeing his recruitment through, doing his due diligence. And, I'm not sure this thing was ever as close as it was conveyed publicly. There's a lot of different ways recruitments can get spun. And this one got spun. It has been slanted heavily towards Texas for 2-3 weeks now, until a couple of days before the commitment. They did such a good job of keeping this thing buttoned up, such a good job. And that doesn't happen very much these days. Those things tend to get out. Big time kid for Clemson, one of the best corners in the class. Long, athletic, blazing fast, top end speed off the charts. Bring a lot of speed to the back end of that defense. You watch his film, I don't see really anything negative to point out. Only thing I can say is he's going to need a little bulk when he gets here, and that's not unusual. So get a little bit more muscle on him before he gets here, and that's a guy that might be playing early. He's got that kind of talent. Another thing that's happened in the past week, the dismissal of T.J. Dudley leaves Clemson a little short at linebacker. Leaves them real short on experience. Not that Dudley had a ton, but at least he had gotten his feet a little bit wet. You're going to have to grow Kobe McLeod up in a hurry. Clemson plays a lot of that 4-2-5 man, and it employs a lot of nickel looks. So maybe doesn't hurt them as bad as it might look on the surface, because Trotter and Carter are going to play a lot of snaps. You just need to keep those guys healthy, which was kind of the case before Dudley got bounced. But, you really need to keep them guys. You really need to keep those guys healthy either way. Does open up another linebacker spot in this class, though. Clemson was kind of considering taking another linebacker. I think they will definitely take one now, no matter what Wyatt Simmons does. He's kind of one guy out there with an offer right now, and I feel like they'll probably see him through, see if they can win him over. Auburn's probably the biggest competition, but he's a guy, man, that I've never talked with him. He doesn't say much publicly, doesn't put a lot of stuff out there publicly. Hard to get a good read on, so we'll see what happens with him. But I think Clemson takes another linebacker now regardless. Six weeks, that's right. Best part of Monday. the sunglasses. They kind of came out late on Gibson. I debated for a little while whether to put them out at all. It was one of those deals where it was getting so close to commitment time was the point. But I ended up doing it late Friday night. What kind of year do I see XT having? XT just needs to stay healthy, period. He's had some terrible luck. He looks to be in the best shape of his career. The coaches were kind of raving about that last week. That's the only thing with him is he's just got to stay healthy. He needs a break because he's not gotten one. In the past couple of years, he's had some terrible luck. He just needs the ball to bounce his way, so to speak. They need him to stay healthy too. Not much experience behind him in my skull there. They're going to have to grow some of those freshmen up this year. I think Parker's going to play a lot. We'll see. I think Hoffler could get some opportunities to play early. We'll see about Ojegbe. They talked about him being a similar body type to XT because he that's a built dude, man. He is a physical specimen. But we'll see what happens. Lomansky Hall kind of talked up my skull last week, thinks he might have a big season. They need those two guys, though. They need them to, first and foremost, stay healthy, then step up and play at a high level this year. What's left? In this class, what's left? Still need a couple offensive linemen. They did hand out a new offer last week, Elijah Thurman. I would fully expect him to take a visit in the fall. We'll see what happens beyond that. Favor Edwin gets talked about a lot. Guy's not played football before. He goes to the same high school as Zachariah Owens. This is going to be his first season. He worked out at camp, and I think there was a lot of things to like about his workout, but he's very raw. Again, he's just moved here a couple of years ago to the U.S. Kind of moved here with an eye on playing basketball, and now he's got the body type, the size to play offensive lineman, and he's going to take a crack at that this year. We'll see if Clemson jumps in the ring and offers. Might be a little while before they do. You might want to see him play some games first. Not sure how it's going to play out yet. Thurman's the one guy to keep an eye on, though, for sure. Still need another defensive end. We're pretty sure now it's not going to be Edric Houston. You still got Solomon Williams out there. We'll see if he maybe visits during the fall. I think Elias Williams is another name to know. Might have mentioned this last week or somewhere else, but I touched base with him, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. He said he was still in touch with Wes Goodwin and Lomansky Hall, and they talked a little bit about getting him up for a game in the fall. Doesn't have an offer yet. He was here for the spring game. So I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. Got to have another linebacker. And it would not shock me to see him take a third receiver. I think it'd have to be a smaller slot type guy, but not saying it will happen, just saying if they found one they like, I could definitely see it playing out that way. Other than that, I think they're done, barring some unexpected attrition during the season. And we've already seen 2 guys unexpectedly leave already, Greg Williams and TJ Dudley. So, that's kind of par for the course under today's landscape. Am I surprised O-line offers are still slow to come, especially if they want 2 or 3 more? Thurman doesn't sound so excited yet either. Not really. I'm not all that surprised. There was part of me that thought it could stretch into the fall before we really started seeing things amp up. I expect the cookout this weekend to pretty much be like it was last year, committed guys. I'm not even sure all the committed guys are going to make it. I think most of them will, but I think there's going to be the few that won't. Corey and Gibson told me today he was coming. There's a few more I noticed coming, but I think Clemson's probably going to wait until some high school games get started before they really amp things back up. We'll see. Things are going to open up for a week here, and then we're going to go back into another dead period. So it's not like you could get them back on campus or anything like that in August anyways. I wasn't really that surprised. And yeah, I do think they got some work to do with Thurman, absolutely. Edric Houston is announced on August 22nd. I think Ian Reed sees early playing time. Dudes we brought in for 2023 class are beasts. Love the offensive line guys. I think Harris Sewell's probably the one I would look at first out of those 3 guys. I think Zachariah Owens is probably headed for a red shirt. Wouldn't shock me to see Ian Reed redshirted. We'll see how it shakes out when we get to fall camp. I heard good things about Reed in the spring. So, I mean, if in a pinch, if you need him, I mean, I guess he's a guy you can turn to. But if I was looking at one of those 3 guys, I'm going Harris Sewell. List for the cookout. I'm working on that right now. I have been working on that today, trying to reach out to some guys. Again, I think it's going to pretty much – I think it's going to be fairly uneventful as far as a big recruiting event. It's since Clemson started hosting guys that first weekend in June, it's kind of taken some of the luster off the cookout. That's just the way it plays out. You do your big pitch that first weekend in June, and you use the cookout for some guys maybe you want to bring back if you need to. I'm just not sure it's working out this year to where there's going to be any uncommitted targets on campus. We'll see. Maybe it ends up being 1 or 2, but I haven't gotten wind of any yet. Just, again, it sounds like it's going to be a bunch of committed guys. And all about, those guys bonding some more and the tampering that goes on. That's guys that are already on your roster. You know what's going on with your commits. So just another opportunity to get those guys back on campus and do what you can to keep them in the fold. If I heard anything about Sammy Brown's teammate Skylar Zimmerman, I know he doesn't have an offer, but I like his. No, I haven't heard anything about him. I don't know anything about him, to be quite honest. Who do I think commits next? I have no idea. I think it's gonna taper off for a little bit right now. Nobody on the radar right now that I see committing to Clemson here in the immediate future. We'll see if Wyatt Simmons decides he's one of the linebacker with an offer. We'll see if he decides to go ahead and shut things down. I'm not sure he's going to. Again, he's a guy that's hard to get a good read on, hasn't talked about any kind of timeline for a decision or anything. So Auburn's probably your biggest competition again. I'm not sure who will be the next to commit. I think we get somewhere between probably 21, 22, 23 players in this class, and there's already 17. Clemson's all but done. So I'm not sure who the next one's going to be. I asked last week about NFL potential. Who on the starting offensive line is draftable top 3 rounds this year? This year, maybe nobody. Really, all you lose is Putnam, right? Off the top of my head. I don't see Tristan Lee leaving after this year. I think there are some guys. I think Blake Miller has top 3 potential, but he's not leaving after this year. I think Marcus Tate's got NFL potential. Obviously, I think Tristan Lee's got NFL potential. We'll just have to see how, he develops over the next year or two. Not sure I'd say Putnam's a top 3 round guy, but I think there's some possibilities. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying any of those guys are going in the first 3 rounds. I think they have the potential to be drafted within the first 3 rounds. Not sure I see any surefire first round picks or anything. But I think there's some potential there for some guys to go in the first 3-4 rounds for sure. Is the NCAA going to do anything to teams for tampering with Cam? No. No. Have they done anything to any teams for any other tampering? There's no Cam Cantarell is no special circumstance, man. There's all kind of tampering going on. All kind of tampering going on. I don't know how true this is, so don't hold me to this because I was just kind of told this in passing. But there are some who believe that Tennessee was talking to Billy Amick going as far back as when they were here for the regional. So there's all kind of tampering going on. And if you do it through third and fourth parties, it's not necessarily illegal. There's not a whole lot you can do about it under the current landscape. It's just the world we're living in right now. With Mike Matthews going to Tennessee, Mazio Bennett could flip. I don't know. If he flips, don't expect him to flip to Clemson. I can tell you that. There's a reason he never got an offer. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I haven't fully listened to all of Wes Goodwin yet, but Cade Denoff and Zaire Patterson have both been here 3 years now. Now is the time. Both of those guys need to step up and produce, or they risk being passed by guys like T.J. Parker, A.J. Hoffler, David Ajabi, heck, maybe even Peter Woods, because Lemansky Hall talked about the possibility of him potentially lining up outside some this season. So it's kind of now or never for those two guys, in my opinion. They were they were developmental guys when they were brought in, so it's not a shock that they needed some time, but they've been here a little while now. It feels like kind of now or never for those two guys. Thoughts on the wide receiver core this year being another weakness? I think the wide receiver room can be a strength for this team this year, unlike the past couple years. But that hinges on one thing. Bo Collins has to stay healthy. Adam Randall has to stay healthy. First and foremost, those two guys have to be healthy. Those are two of your 3 starting receivers. Collins has kind of struggled with injuries the past couple of years. Adam Randall caught a bad break last year with the ACL. You keep those two guys healthy, I think the wide receiver room's got some potential now that there's a new quarterback in town, and a new offense in place. There's a lot of variety in that room. Um, I think Tyler Brown's one of the freshmen that could come in and contribute right away. They really talked up Ronan Hannafin last week. We'll see what Noble Johnson does. He kind of looked like a guy that might need a year back in the spring. He's playing in the boundary during the spring, going to move to the other side of the field in the fall. We'll see if Troy Stellato can stay healthy and if he still has that speed before he did pre-injury. Because that was something that he brought to the table, man, was elite level speed. And it's something Clemson's lacked in that wide receiver room. I think Randall's probably faster than he's given credit for, but Troy Stellato and Tyler Brown, give you a whole different kind of speed. It'd be interesting to see if he can finally catch a break and stay healthy. There's some things to like about that wide receiver room, but it starts with keeping those guys available. If they're watching from the sidelines week after week, you're going to be in trouble. There's not much experience behind Bo Collins and Antonio Williams, and Brandon Spector. Those are your three most experienced guys, and Collins is a guy that's had trouble staying healthy. I still think caliber receiver. It's up to him how good he wants to be, but it starts with staying healthy. And that, that's not all on him. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you can't help when you get hurt. But I do think he has the potential to be really good if he really wants it. We'll just have to see if those guys can stay healthy. And I've talked about it on here before. Adam Randall went to Myrtle Beach, so I'm familiar with him from his high school days. That is a guy that can be that alpha in your wide receiver room. He's just that talented. He's got that kind of mentality. I see him as a guy that can take over games when you need a receiver to kind of take over for stretches. I think he's that kind of talent. How do I expect the kicking game to go with Potter gone? That's a good question. I think Robert Gunn has a cannon for a leg. He's got a very strong leg. He's just going to have to show that he can be consistent. He's not shown that quite yet. Didn't sound like he showed it throughout the spring. They lost the Liam Boyd, the walk-on kicker. He transferred out after the spring. Kind of sounds like he might have been on his way to winning that job. That's kind of scary to think about, considering he's gone now. And the kicking game is such an important aspect of college football, man. You need a dependable kicker. It's going to be interesting to see where Robert Gunn is once we get a couple weeks into fall camp and listen to some of the things that are being said. It's going to be interesting to watch the battle at punter unfold. I don't think Aiden Swanson's locked into that job. I thought he did okay for the most part last year, but he was a little inconsistent at times. Jack Smith's a big dude, 250 pounds, 6'4", 6'5", and he's got a cannon for a leg too. You watch him in that indoor facility, he's just booming them off the ceiling. But Dabo Swinney's talked about him being inconsistent too. If he can find that consistency, maybe he wins that job. Some of these kickers, it takes them a year or two before they develop that consistency. We saw it with Chandler Catanzaro. He was very inconsistent as a freshman. But then after that, man, he really locked in, and he was an excellent place kicker. We'll see what the trajectory for Gunn is. NCAA is on its way out, in my opinion. Conference leadership is getting more of the power, and more state legislatures are passing laws keeping them NCAA from enforcing, making lawsuits easier too. Yeah, the NCAA has no teeth anymore. They spent about 2 years working on NIL legislation, right? One Supreme Court ruling, and they just had to scrap it all, and that's why we are where we are. There's not a lot of enforcing they can do right now, and as soon as they try to enforce something, they're gonna get sued and they're gonna lose. Period. They don't have a leg to stand on. That's why, I've said it before. I see the Power 5 football for the most part, not all of them, but 40, 50, 6 teams, whatever it is, breaking off from the NCAA and going and doing their own thing, making their own rules. Probably players getting paid salaries. The collegiate model will be a thing of the past as far as these big-time football programs go. Yeah, I didn't mention Cole Turner, did I? Yeah, I think Cole Turner is going to be in that rotation too. Another guy that brings a lot of speed. Not saying he's going to start or anything, but I think he's going to be a contributor. You can get him in there and create some mismatches because he's much faster than he looks if you're just sitting there looking at him, man. The kid can run, he can move, he can go up and high point the ball. I think he's going to be an asset to that room. How big a step does Wes Goodwin take? Notre Dame ran the ball up the gut, if I'm correct, after that game. Simpson and Carter switch. Really seen Trotter come on after that. How much Wes grown? Most players seem to take their biggest jumps between their freshman and sophomore seasons. I kind of see that same thing with coaches a lot of the time too. He's got a year under his belt. And let's remember, he went from being an analyst to a coordinator, not from an analyst to a position coach, man. He was top dog all of a sudden, and he had some very big shoes to fill. I think Wes is going to be much better in year 2. And one of the things that's going to help tremendously is he's got a lot of experience to rely on, all over that defense up front, in the middle, on the back end. They're very experienced now. In hindsight, moving Simpson inside looks like a mistake now, but I'm not sure. I think that move was probably happening whether Venables left or not. It worked out. Now you know where you got now you know where Carter is best suited to play, and that's where he'll be this year. But yeah, I think you'll see. I think the defense is going to be better this year, and I think a big part of it will be because Wes has got a year under his belt now. He knows what to expect. He's had a year to kind of or an entire offseason, let's say, to kind of self-scout and see where he needed to make some improvements, make some adjustments or whatever. He looks a whole lot more comfortable. I remember the first time he met with the media last year. He didn't look very comfortable, and he seems a lot more relaxed and comfortable now. I think he's going to grow and settle into this role just fine. Could any 2025 guys show up for the cookout? No, that's just for 2024 guys. Not saying there won't be any 2025 guys stop by and visit while it's open back up, or maybe even over that same weekend, but it'll be separate of the cookout. Was it Potter in the doghouse until the lights came on and then he started to put it together? Potter did spend a little bit of time in the doghouse. If you go back to when Trevor Lawrence was still, I want to say it was the North Carolina game in Chapel Hill. a few years ago where Clemson barely squeaked one out. They called Potter's number, and he kind of, I guess he wasn't paying attention or something, and he didn't hear him, and he didn't realize they were calling him to come onto the field, so he's late getting out. And he got benched, if I'm remembering that right. He got benched for a game or two. My memory's not what it used to be, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, he did spend a little bit of time in the doghouse, and he did, need a little bit of time to find and develop that consistency. Yeah, Mike Reed's coaching special teams. I don't think they have a true kicking coach. Some of those guys go off and work with their own coaches during the off season. I think sometimes Clemson brings somebody in maybe to work with them during the off season. I want to say they brought somebody in for a short time to work with them this off season. I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, a former kicker at Clemson. Might have been a punter, maybe Bradley Pinion or somebody like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I love the expectations, but I think we are a year away. Yeah, we talked about this on our live show last Wednesday, or we touched on it a little bit. Is Clemson good enough to make the playoff this year? And my answer is yes. I think they are good enough to make the playoff. However, I'm not convinced that they're good enough to win once they get there. Might depend on the matchup, who you're playing, of course, but if you say you go in as a 4 seed and you're matched up against Georgia, I'm not sure this Clemson team's quite there yet. They've kind of taken a step back, but I think they are on their way to being back in that top tier of teams. The last couple of classes, they've addressed some needs. They've kind of, especially along the, they've restocked along the defensive line. I think they recruited well on the offensive line. You got your next 2 quarterbacks in place already behind Klubnik. You're set up at running back for the next few years. You've already got your next dynamic tight end on board. So they've really recruited well, man. So I think the shutdowns really hurt Clemson recruiting. When you're not able to get kids on campus and let them experience that culture firsthand, because it's much harder to sell that thing virtually. You need to get them there and let them experience it. And I think it had an impact on recruiting. Missing on your quarterback, on your next big time quarterback certainly had an impact. That'll set you back a year or two right there. But I think Clemson's done a lot of good things in the past 12 to 18 months to kind of get them back where they were a few years ago. I think Clemson still has a good path to the 2023 playoffs, but not to the trophy. I really hope the Riley offense year 2 is top 5. That first game in 2024 must be a win. Yeah, see, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm not convinced they're good enough to be a national title team in 2023. I think they're good enough to get to the playoff, absolutely. They might be a year away before they're ready to beat a Georgia or somebody like that. It would just depend on who you matched up with when you got to the playoff. But Georgia might be in a tier all by themselves right now. And then you got kind of under them, you got Alabama, Ohio State, maybe a couple more teams. And then you got everybody else in that other tier. And I think Clemson's right there right now. Maybe a little bit behind Alabama, Ohio State. A little bit, not much, a little bit. But I don't think they're going to stay there. Again, I think Dabo Swinney's made a lot of right moves to address some things that needed to be addressed. First and foremost, bringing somebody in to redo the offense that had gotten pretty damn stale over the past couple of years. For just put it out there, it is what it is. Take the pure quarterback play out of the equation. The offense has just been stale, period. that needed to be addressed, and it's been addressed. And I know there are high expectations going into this season. It might take a game or two for them to get it going, man. There might be some hiccups early in the season, some little speed bumps here and there. Just I think we talked about last week. Remember Chad Morris's first game at Clemson? It did not go great. I remember there was some boos coming from the fans at halftime, but they'll get there. They'll get there. Need to get there by the 23rd when Florida State rolls into town. That's for sure. Kind of year do you think Vic Burley can have? He is a freak and can play all defensive line positions. I think Burley's going to strictly be a defensive tackle. That's kind of how he's built. That's his strength. Clemson's so deep on the interior right now, though. It might be hard for him to see the field a lot this season. That's not knocking his ability. It's just how much depth Clemson's got there. It starts with Tyler Davis and Rukaroro, and even beyond that, you got guys like DeMonte Capehart who have been here a few years, and he still really hasn't played a whole lot yet. And I think his ceiling is extremely high. Peyton Page, Trey Williams. I mean, the list goes on. We'll see. I think Burley is a guy that if his name's called, he'll be ready. He's extremely talented. He's physically ready. We'll just see if he can crack that rotation. I love all three of those interior guys Clemson signed in the last class. Burley, Stephon Green, obviously Peter Woods. Green's a guy I could see. I want to say he played a little bit on the outside in the spring game. Don't hold me to that for sure, but I want to say that's what happened. And obviously Woods is a guy you can line up outside if you need to. We'll see how much they use him outside. Doesn't sound like there's going to be as many three-man fronts as maybe I was thinking. Listening to what Wes Goodwin had to say last week, he made it pretty clear that this is a 4-3 defense, four-man look. So we'll see what happens once we get into the season. But Clemson likes to play a lot of nickel too, but that's going to come out of the four-man front, obviously. The dude thinks Clemson is 12-0 ACC champs and get to the natty. Got to stay healthy at QB and wide receiver, top 5D, and I believe we will have a top 25 offense. We are hungry. Hey, you absolutely got to keep Cade Klubnik healthy. Which that goes without saying. There's not a bunch of teams across the country that can survive losing their starting quarterback. I don't think Clemson can survive losing Klubnik. Vizina's just not ready. I think you could rely on Helms in a pinch if you needed to. We'll see where Paul Tyson is as we get into camp, but you got to keep Klubnik healthy. That's absolute must. Brady's already looking ahead to November. We must beat South Carolina. The dude says Dabo is hungry. That's good. Hungry Dabo. I thought Dabo was he looked very relaxed to me last week. He looked very confident in his team. I want to say he said something about this team has the potential to be great. It's kind of up to them. I loved what they talked about. The multiple coaches talked about the accountability has been there with this team, unlike any team in the past. Those are the kinds of things you like to hear, man. We'll see how that translates to the field. But Dabo Swinney seemed awfully relaxed last week when he spoke to the media. Just kind of had I don't know. It seemed like a quiet confidence to me, not boasting a whole lot about any position or the team overall, not going overboard with boasting. He came off kind of a little bit reserved and quietly confident, very relaxed. I think those are all good signs. Austin and Dabo should look to Texas for the next O-line offers. They are getting results from that state. Maybe a lot of the kids are drinking the SEC Kool-Aid too much yet. They've had some luck over there in Texas here in recent years, no doubt about it. Ian Reed, Harris Sewell, both came from Texas. Offensive lineman in the last class. You just went in there and snatched Corey and Gibson away from Texas. It's an idea for sure. Do you think QB will be in the run game consistently? Yes, I think Klubnik's legs will be a big part of the offense. You were limited in what you could do in that regard with DJ Uyunglele. Those limitations will not be there with K. Klubnik. He is a dynamic runner. He's deceptively quick. He can make he can make plays in the open field. He is a true dual threat guy, and I expect them to take full advantage of that. Do I expect to see more 4-2-5? Yeah, I could see that. More 4-2-5, absolutely. I could see Woodaz moving up and playing inside some. She did that. He's kind of done that a little bit already. It won't be, so I could see that as a possibility. But regardless, you're gonna have to grow Kobe McLeod up in a hurry, man. He's gonna have to play at least a little bit. And you better hope and pray you keep Trotter and Carter healthy, because there's not a lot you can do about it now. But yeah, I do expect to see. Clemson plays a lot of nickel, anyways. You might even see a little bit more of that 4-2-5 now. Keeping Cade healthy takes his legs away. You can't play. You can't be scared to run him. And I see the point you're trying to make. The QB run is going to be a part of the offense. You can't be scared to run him. You can't be scared. You can't play the what if game. I think the quarterback run is going to be a big part of things. I think they're going to rely heavily on the run, period, to start the season. I think Klubnik's going to be a factor in that. Not saying he's going to carry the ball 20 times a game or anything like that. I just think he's going to be a part of it. He's that kind of guy, and you got to take advantage of that. Grisham seemed better than I've seen in years. Everyone looks excited for a change, a little bit of fire. Yeah, I thought Grisham sounded confident in what he's got in that room. I specifically asked him about the experience, and he sounded very confident. Again, I think there's a lot of talent and a lot of variety in that wide receiver room. Man, you got to keep Bo Collins healthy. Adam Randall needs to stay healthy. It just starts there. Got to keep those guys healthy. McLeod should have a good opportunity to get broken in the first 3 weeks. May need him as a backup in week 4. Yeah, they're 2 of those first 3 games. Absolutely, get him. They might be some opportunity there to get out there and get his feet wet. Has there been any word about what team rules were broken with Dudley? No, I don't. I don't know anything about that. And Clemson's not going to tell you what happened. They're just going to say team rules are broken. That's going to be the end of it. think I got them all, man. 45 minutes gives me some time to pack and get ready for my early road trip in the morning. Hey, don't forget, Wednesday, August 23rd, our next big live show, 6 p.m. from Alumni Hall. Gonna have a lot of stuff to give away. Got some free t-shirts to give away. We're going to, on August 1st, we're also going to start doing a online radio type show. 5 p.m. in the afternoons. Be on the lookout for that. We'll have more details on that over the next week, over the next few days. And as always, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. We would very much appreciate it. Let me catch this here. What was Adam's other position in high school? His dad was a pretty good linebacker. The last game I went and watched Adam Randall play in high school, man, he was everywhere. He was everywhere. They had him at safety. He was at wide receiver. They had him lined up at quarterback. He did a little bit of everything. So he's pretty versatile. If you're talking about Adam Randall. So again, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Be on the lookout for our radio style show starting August the 1st. So just about a week away. Our next live show, August 23rd, live from Alumni Hall. Be back with you guys right here next Monday night, as always, at 7 p.m. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. Thought we was going to make it through without the dog getting her screen time, but there she goes. Never fails. Hey, catch y'all next week. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Check us out, allclemsontigers.com.